Do you ever worry about someone? Have you ever been in a place where you're expecting somebody to show up? Somebody was going to meet you somewhere, they don't show up? You ever worry about that? Does it ever give you just a complete unease? Are you able to go ahead and do what you plan to do when you don't know where your friend is, or what happened, why he's late? What do you do? What do you do? Do you just go ahead and have dinner and enjoy yourself? Or do you worry? Paul faced that same thing, and he talks about it here as part of his explanation of why, when he said he was going to come to Corinth, he wasn't able to come. So as we're studying through 2 Corinthians, and in chapter 2, we're now down to verse 13. And that's a particularly special place for me, which I'll explain in a few minutes. So it says here, Paul is speaking, and he says, I still had no peace of mind because I did not find my brother Titus there. So I said goodbye to them and went on to Macedonia. So there was Paul in Troas, but he had no peace of mind. Well, why didn't he have peace of mind? Doesn't he have the peace that passeth understanding? That's hard to say. Well, he says he didn't have any peace of mind. Why? Because he was expecting to see Titus, and Titus wasn't there. He's worried. He goes on to Macedonia. See, these Bible characters, Paul and all, they're just as human as we are. And if we really study them carefully, we can see how to live this Christian life as ordinary human beings, not as some kind of super saints that walk with their feet 2 inches above the floor. Real people, real emotions, and a really big God who gets us through it all. So there's Paul, just this little simple statement. He says, I went on to Macedonia because I just couldn't sit still, basically, worrying about Titus. So he goes to Macedonia. Well, what happened when he got to Macedonia? Funny you should ask. Now, Paul is famous for his parentheticals. What's a parenthetical? Remember I said Paul's famous for his parenthetical. Now I'm going to explain what a parenthetical is. Parenthetical is you stop the story, in this case the story of Paul, to explain something else. In this case, I'm using a parenthetical to explain what a parenthetical is. It's where you stop telling the story you're telling, explain something that without explaining it, the story won't make much sense, and then you get back to the story. So what happened in Macedonia? You see, I just gave a parenthetical. Well, Paul isn't going to tell us yet because he inserts a parenthetical. It's not a little parenthetical. Here we are in chapter 7 and chapter 2 and verse 13. And the parenthetical starts in chapter 2, verse 14, and it keeps going through the rest of chapter 2, all the way through chapter 3, all the way through chapter 4, all the way through chapter 5 and chapter 6, and we come to the end of the parenthetical and pick up the story where he left off, going to Macedonia in chapter 7, verse 5. That's a lot of parenthetical. But that parenthetical is the reason that I embarked on this series of studies on 2 Corinthians, because that parenthetical is so rich, and I'm really looking forward to the next lesson when I can start talking about all the great things that Paul has to say when he gets off this topic of why I didn't go to Corinth when you wanted me to, and starts talking about his relationship, our relationship with Christ Jesus in such wonderful terms. So come back to the next lesson and we'll get into it. I guarantee you, we're going to enjoy it together.